Happy New Year to every Iranian in the streets. Also, to every Mossad agent walking beside them. Folks, that is the former director of the CIA, the former Secretary of State, admitting that Mossad is in the streets protesting and escalating the situation in Iran. Russia has allegedly reportedly supplied nuclear-capable Iskander missiles to Iran. There's been a lot of these Russian military cargo jets, the Ilyushin 76s, landing in Tehran and Isfahan over the past 2 weeks. In my 2026 prediction video, we seem to have already gotten one thing right, and that a few things right. First of all, I said Maduro would be gone, likely. Second of all, I said that Israel's going to launch another war on Iran, but first, they're going to do something different. They're going to do widespread protests all across the country. They're going to foment chaos, riots, violence, property destruction, desecration of national monuments and symbols, and by virtue of that, the morale of the people, and then they'll do the attacks. That is where we are headed right now. Now, I will start off by saying that the protests in Iran, initially, they were peaceful. Initially, these protests were peaceful. Initially, they had everyone from the reformists to the principalists, right? Because the leader of Iran, Pezeshkian, is of the reformist camp. Principalists were protesting, as were reformists protesting over economic challenges that are very real that the Iranian people are facing. Worth noting, when Raisi, a hardliner, a principalist, when he was in power before he was killed, and I have no illusions about that. I mean, I do believe he was killed. I believe he was martyred. I don't think his helicopter just magically fell out of the sky. When he was killed, inflation was very moderate. It was very mellow, right? Everything was on track. Everything was good. The agreements with the Russians were being worked out. And then all the reformists come to power. Jalili loses the election. Pezeshkian comes in. And I don't even necessarily think, I think Pezeshkian is a patriot, of course, right? They almost killed him. They injured him in the last war. But I think that there are plenty of people in the more oligarchical sections of the reformist movement who have a lot of money tied up in Western countries, and they're sanctioned, and right, they don't necessarily have the best interests of Iran at heart. And these are the people in the shadows, right? So Pezeshkian comes to power, and what immediately happens? Boom, inflation through the roof. Now, is that all Pezeshkian's fault? Honestly, I don't know, but I find it interesting that Pezeshkian comes to power, inflation goes through the roof. I do find it interesting that Raisi's plane falls out of the sky, and then during Pezeshkian's inauguration, Ismail Haniyeh, one of the leaders of Hamas, travels to Tehran for the inauguration ceremony. He gets like drone striked in the home that he was staying in. And then not too long after that, we have the assassination of Syed Hassan Nasrallah in Lebanon, in Beirut, in Al-Dahiyah. I just think that there's some interesting things going on. There's been allegations that there are certain parties in this great war in the Middle East that is still ongoing that were responsible for some of this information leaking about the whereabouts of Ismail Haniyeh and Syed Hassan Nasrallah, right? That being said, the economic situation in Iran, obviously not good as a result of decades of sanctions and war and whatnot, but the Pezeshkian administration seemingly has not made things better. Just the opposite. Something that he actually takes credit for, right? He has said these mistakes are our mistakes. He has said in his speeches over the past few weeks that the mistakes that people are feeling, the economic issues that people are feeling, it is not just a result of the Americans or the Israelis. I mean, these are mistakes that I have to take responsibility for. Those are his words. So he has tried to deal with some of these issues. But as people began to see that these protests were taking place, Mossad began to escalate the situation. They began to provide scripts to people in the streets to scream out on video certain words, certain phrases, to do certain things like putting Trump's name on street signs, to begin plotting escalatory terrorist measures in Iran amidst these protests and turning them into from peaceful protests into violent protests. Providing people with the means to create these Molotov cocktails, providing people with the justification to take target at certain institutions or symbols in the country. President Pezeshkian announced that they will hand over 70,000 free apartments to citizens over the next several months to try and fix some of the economic problems that people are facing. They also announced the creation of a stipend for Iranian citizens amidst the economic hardship. But still, the protests began to escalate further. So you have to ask the question, if the government is responding to these problems, admitting that they are responsible for these problems, and doing whatever they can to try and aid people who are suffering right now, why are the protests still escalating? Why are they taking a violent turn? Why are they now resulting in things like this, which over the last 24 hours we saw the mayor of Tehran gave statistics on the damage caused by rioters in the capital. 2 hospitals and medical centers were attacked. So you're telling me that people who are suffering, starving, they don't have enough money, whatever it may be, that their first instinct is to attack hospitals? That sounds like an Israeli move. That sounds like exactly what Israel did in Gaza and in Lebanon and during the 12-day war against Iran. Economic infrastructure was targeted, including attacks on 26 banks. 25 mosques were also attacked and set on fire. Again, that sounds like an Israeli move, attacking mosques. The protest started off with people of all political stripes protesting against the economic issues. Now you have people attacking and trying to light on fire mosques. That's insane. All right, this is clearly a Mossad escalation of what were, in some ways, legitimate protests at the start. Besieged bases and police facilities were attacked. 48 fire trucks were set on fire. Rioters attacked the firefighters themselves who were coming to extinguish the fires. I also saw reported that several besieged members and several police officers, were also actually killed. Now, also, we know that protesters were killed. Okay? So this is where you start to have to ask questions, right? We saw Mike Pompeo tweet this out. The Iranian regime is in trouble. Bringing in mercenaries is its last bet hope. Riots in dozens of cities and the besieged under siege. Mossad, Tehran, Zahedan, next stop, Baluchistan. 47 years of this regime. POTUS 47. Coincidence? Happy New Year to every Iranian in the streets. Also to every Mossad agent walking beside them. Folks, that is the former director of the CIA, the former Secretary of State, admitting that Mossad is in the streets protesting and escalating the situation in Iran. All right. So what are we doing here? We're acting like these violent rioters are the same thing as the genuine protesters at the start of this discontent. But now we have the ex-director of CIA, ex-secretary of state, who led the charge under the Trump administration #1 of a maximum pressure campaign against Iran in the form of sanctions, who led the charge to get Trump to exit the JCPOA, the Iran deal, under the auspices that Iran was working with al-Qaeda. Ludicrous, I know, considering that General Soleimani was fighting al-Qaeda and ISIS all across the region. And who also, of course, led the eventual charge for the assassination of General Qasem Soleimani. They're admitting it, and they're not afraid to admit it. All right? Now, this is probably one of the best moments. We have Patrick Bet-David, who's probably one of the biggest idiots on Twitter, on YouTube right now. This guy can't stop sucking off Reza Pahlavi. He can't stop sucking off the former Shah, Reza Pahlavi's father. It's like, get over it, bro. He's dead. He's been dead a long time. Like this, he has this man crush on Pahlavi, And listen to him try to pronounce the names of the Iranian cities.
Also claimed the cities of Abdanan, not Abadan. Abadan is a big city. Abdanan and Melek Shahi were effectively taken over by...
This is the guy who knows everything about what the Iranian people want, right? He knows exactly what they want. The Iranian people want Trump, who just launched a war against their country. They want Trump, who killed Qasem Soleimani, a national hero, right? But he can't even pronounce the name of some of the largest cities in Iran. One more time.
Not Abadan. Abadan is a big city. Abdanan and Melek Shahi were effectively taken over by protesters.
All right, bro, just sit this one out. He said in this podcast, he's like, I can't wait to do the PBD podcast from Tehran, right? It's going to be so good. Adam, we're going to bring you to Tehran, right? I can't with this guy. What a joke. What a joke. What a disgrace to his own people, right? Anyway, so he's claiming that these cities have fallen. Abdanan, he said, has fallen, which is just ludicrous. Even Glenn Greenwald, someone who's been a guest on the Patrick Bet-David show, said, when the internet first emerged and become commonly used in the mid-1990s, everyone understood. Don't believe what you read on the internet because anyone can just say whatever bullshit they want. That minimal critical thinking is now gone. Now bullshit just spreads like wildfire, referring to this viral post from Visegrad, like just absolute NATO Israeli propaganda account saying the Israeli regime in Iran has lost control of its first city. The anti-regime protesters have taken full control of the city of Abdanan. All right. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Trump is saying that if the Iranian government kills any of these protesters, he's going to launch airstrikes on Iran. Right? Because the correct approach in dealing with dead protesters is to just kill more Iranian civilians. That totally makes sense, right? Don't forget, Trump, one of his federal ICE agents just shot an unarmed single mother of three legal observer who's like apolitical in the face in the streets of Minneapolis this week on the same day that he threatened this. Now, we're also getting Reza Pahlavi, who has outed himself as a total Zionist agent and puppet. You know, he's really trying to make the case for himself to be the new leader of Iran. Post-Ayatollah, post-Islamic Republic Iran. He writes these long pieces saying that, you know, we just really need to bomb Iran again. We really need to do it again. And surely if we start bombing Iran and killing Iranians again, then I will be placed into a position of power. Clearly, he didn't see how the whole thing with Maria Corina Machado went in Venezuela, because as soon as they kidnapped Maduro, Trump was asked about Maria Corina Machado, and he's like, yeah, no, she's not going to be president. By the way, this is a video of the Iranian clown prince Reza Pahlavi in 2018, yes, whose wife sleeps with her yoga instructor, saying he would have no choice but to condemn a U.S. military strike on Iran. That was 2018, but of course, times have changed, and now he fully supports that. He's even begging Trump to do that. Well, Trump has already come out and stated that regarding Reza Pahlavi, he seems like a nice guy, but I don't think at this point he would be suitable as president. We should let everyone take to the streets and see who emerges. So already, Trump has abandoned Reza Pahlavi, like, the used condoms that Pahlavi's yoga instructor uses to fuck his wife, right? Now, Iran has taken a very interesting approach. They have said that violent rioters who are arrested will not be pardoned as they were in 2022, but will face the full weight of the law. And I think this is a very welcome change in attitude, because what good did allowing protesters to run rampant, funded by the CIA, National Endowment for Democracy, in the case of the Middle Eastern countries, Mossad, what good did that do for Syria? What good did that do for Venezuela? What good did that do for any of these countries that the U.S. targets with, regime change operations? Russia did exactly this. They said, we're going to prosecute you if you're being funded by the CIA, NED, Western-backed NGOs, And if you're committing violent acts, of course, we're going to protest you regardless of whether we have proof of that or not. And then what happened in Russia? They progressed on a fully sovereign mode of development. All right. And now you don't have all these idiots in Russia championing the overthrow of Vladimir Putin, because it is a Western ideological import into these countries. That it's just as simple as that. So, Iranian outlet Tasnim news agency has reported that multiple security personnel were killed last night during the confrontation with the Mossad network. The public prosecutor, North Khorasan province, said 6 Basij were killed in Hamadan city. Multiple officers were killed in Tehran. So that's not good. And if that was happening in the United States to ICE officers and police officers, I mean, could you imagine what the response from the Trump administration would be? They're already killing, innocent single mothers for just driving a car. Imagine if protesters were killing 6 ICE agents and several police officers in a single night. We also have news that Delta Force operators who captured President Maduro are now repositioning to the Middle East. That's not a good sign. A suspected Israeli insider account with a 100% win rate on Polymarket, with all their bets being on Israeli military operations, has bet that Iran will be attacked by Israel by January 31st. Oddly enough, this actually might delay the attack, which is incredible because they kind of just outed themselves here. But that is interesting. Now, today we've seen something else. All across Iran, there are protests in support of the government taking place. There was some protests in support of the government taking place last night. And over the past few weeks, we've seen this as well. So this, of course, is not going to be shown on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, CBS. Barry Weiss will not be showing you this information. They will not be showing you this information. Here are more protests from all across the country in support of the government. The idea that, however, let's say, it's a country of 90 million. Let's say that there are 30,000 protesters across the country, which is being generous, extremely generous, right? 30,000, is that going to result in the overthrow of the government? No, it's not. But it will cause a lot of chaos, will cause a lot of disarray, and that is not good if Israel's about to launch war, right? That is not good. Turk, thank you. I appreciate it. You say, divide and conquer is the game, Iran remain united. Well, we're going to be talking about that in 1 second because there are some other positive developments. Russia has reportedly supplied nuclear-capable Iskander missiles to Iran. There's been a lot of these Russian military cargo jets, the Ilyushin 76s, landing in Tehran and Isfahan over the past 2 weeks. And a lot of people have been wondering what's in those jets. Is it Su-35s? What's going on? There's been no indication that it's Su-35s. Something like this, Iskanders, would make sense. It would make sense. And we've seen video which indicates that, yes, they have been deployed. The Ayatollah, the supreme leader, has given a speech. Khamenei has given a speech condemning President Trump for inciting these violent rioters. The U.S. president is addressing the Iranian government with the words, "If you harm the rioters, I will support them. If you had the ability to solve problems, you would first solve the problems of your own country," says Ayatollah Khamenei. He also said that his hands, Trump's hands, are stained with the blood of more than 1,000 Iranian lives. True. Godly, thank you so much for the gifted membership. I appreciate it. In the 12-day war, Mr. Khamenei says, in the 12-day war, 1,000 and some of our compatriots, aside from the commanders, scientists, and dignitaries from the ordinary people, were martyred. This person said that I gave the order I commanded during the war, so he confessed that his hands are stained with the blood of Iranians. All right. Then he says, I'm a supporter of the nation of Iran, and a handful of inexperienced, inattentive, and unthinking people believe it, accept it, and act according to his desires. Yeah, those people are useful idiots, as we say. Useful idiots and witting operatives. All right. Now, the thing I like here the most out of the good news that we have is that the Iranian foreign minister, who's usually the person that is most not conciliatory, but open to the idea of further talks and negotiations with the West, has come out over the past 24 hours and said, we'd rather die than bow to the West. We'd rather die an honorable death than live on our knees. Okay, so those are very strong words from him, a man who oftentimes tries to be the diplomat in the room, because that is exactly what he is. But he's a diplomat in a nation that's under attack. Therefore, words like this are fully warranted, in my opinion. Now, I don't really know what's going to happen here. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I made my prediction in my prediction video on January 1st. But as for the timeline, I don't know. Because let me be honest with you. If Iran decides to launch Operation True Promise 3 tonight, before Israel attacks Iran, I guess you could say they already are attacking Iran through subversion and these violent riots and protests. But let's say Iran begins Operation True Promise 3 tonight. Effectively, the Iranian country, the Iranian people will be united. All right. I want to be very clear for the YouTube community. Guidelines seem I do not support that. But the Iranian people will be united. If Israel attacks Iran tonight, same exact thing. So I actually don't really know what the timeline here is. I think the timeline for the Israelis is they want to continue this division and this chaos, this unrest, this violence, destruction for as long as they can. In the moment that they sniff a hint of decline in the protests, as soon as they get just a small whiff that these protests are beginning to die off, that is when they will attack. But for the time being, I think they realize, and if they don't, then they're foolish, even at their own game, right? But, you know, at the time, I think that they probably realize if they were to attack Iran tonight, which, you know, we all know they probably want to, it will just unify the country. So I think this is going to be an operation that lasts for some time. I don't know how long the protests are going to last. And I do believe that once the war begins, it is going to go on for quite some time, potentially years, right? If both parties last that long, I think potentially years. I think this could be an extended, prolonged conflict, and it could get very, very bad very quickly and last that way for a long time. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.